You know what hurts the most? It's not being left out of birthday dinners or being blamed for things you never did. It's when your own parents look at you like you don't belong in the family you were born into. Like you're some stranger renting space in a house you helped keep standing. I gave up my nights, my paychecks, my peace, just to make sure they had light, water, food, and comfort. And they never even asked why the bills were always paid on time. They just assumed it wasn't me. Because in their eyes, I was invisible. But one day, they crossed a line. They told me to leave, without realizing I was the reason they were surviving at all. So I left. And what happened after that? Let's just say, when you stop watering a garden that never appreciated the rain, the flowers begin to wilt. This is my story. My name is Rachel, and I'm 26 years old. I've lived with my parents all my life, at least until the day they asked me to leave like I was some kind of stranger. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to know how things were in our house. Growing up, I always felt like I was on the outside. My mom and dad acted like I didn't exist most of the time. If I got sick, they barely noticed. If I did something good like get a job, finish college, or help around the house, they didn't say a word. But if I made one small mistake, they'd talk about it for weeks. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Ben, was treated like a king. He dropped out of college, spent money like water, and never lifted a finger to help. But my parents still praised him like he was perfect. Ben is just going through a phase, they'd say, or he'll figure it out. It was like they were blind to everything he did. Even though I had a full-time job working remotely, I never told them how much I made. I knew they'd find a way to use it against me. But I still helped out. Every month, I quietly paid the electricity bill, the Wi-Fi, and sometimes even groceries. I even paid Ben's school fees for one semester without telling anyone, just because I didn't want him to drop out again. Still, they never said thank you. Never asked how I was doing. I lived in that house, paid most of the bills, and still got treated like I was just there. Like a ghost. But everything changed one night during dinner, when things finally went too far. It was a Friday evening. I had just finished a long day of meetings and reports, and I was mentally exhausted. I walked into the kitchen and saw my mom setting the table while Ben scrolled on his phone, sitting like a guest in his own home. "Dinner's ready," Mom said, not looking at me. No warmth, no smile, just those same cold, distant words. I sat down quietly and tried to keep the peace. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted a quiet meal. But as soon as we started eating, Dad looked at me and said something that made my heart drop. "You need to start contributing around here," he said sharply. "You're an adult now. You can't keep living here for free." I blinked, frozen in place. "What?" I asked slowly, trying to stay calm. "I've been paying for the bills, electricity, Wi-Fi, and..." Dad cut me off. "Don't lie. We know Ben's the one keeping this place running." I looked at Ben, who smirked and shrugged. He didn't say a word. My voice shook a little. "I've been the one paying, not him. You just never asked." Mom slammed her fork down. "That's enough. Don't cause drama at the table. If you feel so unappreciated, maybe it's time you find your own place." I stared at them, stunned. My chest felt heavy, like I couldn't breathe for a second. I had given everything I had to keep that house going, to keep them going, and they were treating me like a freeloader. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I stood up, walked to my room, packed a small bag with my essentials, and left without another word. They didn't try to stop me. And they had no idea what was about to happen next. The night air hit my face as I stepped outside with my backpack slung over one shoulder. I didn't have a plan, but I had something better: freedom. I walked 2 blocks to my friend Madison's place. She was my coworker and the only person who knew just how much I'd been doing for my family. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, her eyes widened. "You okay?" she asked, pulling me into a hug before I could answer. I shook my head. They told me to leave. So I did. Madison let me crash on her couch that night. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like peace. No tension. No cold stares. Just quiet and a warm blanket. The next morning, I did something small, but powerful. I logged into all the online accounts I had access to: electricity, gas, water, internet. All the bills I'd been secretly paying for months. And I removed my card details. One click at a time. No more automatic payments. No more silent support. No more being invisible. That same week, I got an affordable studio apartment just 10 minutes from work. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I bought my own groceries, decorated my space with string lights and houseplants, and started cooking dinner for myself for the first time in years. It felt healing. Meanwhile, back at my parents' house, things began to crumble fast. On day 4, the Wi-Fi got cut off. On day 6, the electricity bill bounced, and they had a warning note taped to their front door. By the second week, I heard from a neighbor that Ben had dropped out again, blaming financial stress. The best part? My parents still had no idea why this was happening. They thought it was some glitch or mistake. But it wasn't a glitch. It was a wake-up call. And I wasn't done yet. About 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I finally answered. It was my mother. "Rachel," she snapped, skipping any greeting. "Did you cancel the utility payments?" I didn't respond right away. I could hear frustration in her voice, and maybe even fear. "The internet's gone. We're getting shut-off notices. The water bill hasn't been paid in over a month," she said, her voice rising. I took a deep breath and kept my tone calm. "I stopped paying after you kicked me out. I figured it wasn't my place anymore." Silence. Then she said something that made me freeze. "So, it was you all this time? Not Ben?" I almost laughed. "Of course it was me. You never asked. You just assumed." She tried to backtrack, sounding more unsure now. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Why would I?" I said. "You never asked me how I was doing. You never said thank you. You treated me like a stranger in my own home." There was another pause. Then she hung up. I didn't call back. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment. I didn't let him in. He stood at the door, angry and embarrassed, asking if I could help out just for 1 more month. I told him gently but firmly, "I don't owe you anything anymore." He left without saying goodbye. But that was just the beginning. The real twist came when I found out Ben had lied about getting a job. He had been living off the money I sent him, pretending it was his. When his college called my old number asking for overdue tuition, I told them the truth. And guess what? Ben got expelled. My parents' perfect little son was now jobless, degreeless, and sleeping all day at home, with no money to keep the lights on. The house I once paid for was falling apart, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. With every passing day, I felt lighter. No more walking on eggshells. No more silent dinners or cold shoulders. My small studio apartment, though modest, felt like a mansion compared to the emotional prison I had left behind. I started focusing on myself for the first time in years. I took walks in the park, began journaling, and even picked up a new hobby: baking. It was something I'd never had time or peace of mind to do at home. One day, while scrolling on my phone, I got an idea. I set up a simple TikTok and YouTube channel called Quiet Kitchen. I recorded myself making affordable meals in my small kitchen, telling little stories about healing, independence, and starting over. I didn't expect much, but to my surprise, people connected with it. Within a few weeks, my videos started gaining views. One went viral, then another. My subscribers grew. Comments poured in, people saying they saw themselves in my story. People thanking me for being honest. Brands even reached out for partnerships. Soon, I was making enough money for my content that I didn't need my regular job anymore. I quit happily. I had built a new life on my own terms. And the best part? I didn't need my family to do it. Meanwhile, my parents were still drowning in unpaid bills. Neighbors gossiped about their downfall. Ben was doing nothing but blaming the world. And they still hadn't apologized. They didn't know about my online success. They didn't know I was thriving. But one day they would. And when that moment came, I'd be ready. It happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was editing a new recipe video when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Please call us. We need to talk."
Mom,
I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another message came, this time from Ben. I know you're mad, but Mom's been sick. Dad is barely managing. We need your help. Please come home.
Home.
That word used to sting.
But now?
It felt like a place I had already outgrown. Still, something in me was curious. So the next evening I drove by the old house, not to go inside but just to see. The lawn was overgrown. The porch light was off. A final notice was taped to the front door. And through the window, I saw my mother sitting in the dark, wrapped in a blanket. Ben was slouched on the couch, scrolling on his phone. My father stood in the kitchen, pacing. It was the first time I had ever seen them look defeated. The next day, I received a call from a distant relative, Aunt Marlene. She had spoken to my mother and wanted to warn me. They're hoping you'll bail them out, she said. They lost control of the house, and your brother's debt collectors are calling every day. I sighed. Then, like clockwork, my dad showed up at my apartment again, this time with a different tone. I know we were hard on you, he said, but you're doing well now. You can help us fix this. You're still our daughter. I looked him straight in the eye and said what I had rehearsed in my mind for months. You didn't treat me like a daughter. You treated me like a backup plan. And I'm not your rescue line. He tried to argue, but I raised my hand calmly and said, I forgave you for the pain, but I won't fix the damage you cause. And then I closed the door. That was the last time I saw any of them in person. 2 weeks later, I posted a video titled, Why I Had to Walk Away from My Family. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was just honest. I told the story of how I paid every bill in a house where no one appreciated me, how I was treated like I didn't matter, and how I finally left, not in hate, but in self-respect. I spoke about the peace I found, the lessons I learned, and how sometimes the people you sacrifice everything for won't even say thank you. That video exploded. Comments poured in from strangers, some crying, some sharing their own stories of walking away from toxic families. Others thanked me for showing them that it's okay to start over. That survival isn't selfish. That peace is earned, not begged for. People started calling me brave. Some news blogs even shared clips of my story. And that's when my parents found out. They didn't call. But I heard from Aunt Marlene that they were humiliated by how many people had seen the video. They feel exposed, she said. Like you turned the world against them. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't name them. I didn't trash them. I just told my truth. And for once in my life, my voice mattered. Ben, on the other hand, tried messaging me again, this time apologizing. I didn't know you were the one paying. I thought you didn't care. I messed up, he wrote. I didn't reply. Because sometimes silence is the only answer someone deserves. I was no longer the girl they pushed aside. I was no longer the one begging for approval. I was free, and I had finally found my place in the world. It's been a year since I walked out of that house with a single bag on my shoulder. Today, I live in a sunlit apartment with big windows and shelves full of books, plants, and memories I created on my own. My kitchen, the same tiny one from my early videos, is now upgraded, thanks to the income from my growing channel. I've even launched a small product line. Handmade spice blends and baking kits. People ask me all the time, do you regret cutting off your family? And my answer is always the same.
No.
Not because I hate them. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I finally chose me. They had their chance. For years, I was there, quietly helping, waiting to be seen, wishing for a thank you that never came. I kept hoping things would change. But they didn't. Leaving wasn't easy, but it was the most loving thing I've ever done for myself. Sometimes I still think about that house. I wonder if they ever sit around the dinner table and realize who really held things together. If they ever feel the emptiness of what they lost. But I don't wait for that closure anymore. Because here's the truth. I found something better than their apology. I found peace. And as I sit by the window each morning, sipping my coffee, watching the sun rise over a life I built from scratch, I know this deep in my heart. They tried to throw me away, but all they did was set me free.